How pandemics has inspired art, music, and literature. When tourists returned to Florence, some were wandering to its cathedral and by stuck by Angelo de Castro's astray moment of Niccolo de Tolone, painted in 1456. The fresco of mercenary commander and his horse is an optical illusion. The pair are depicted as a stat and the perspective scheme enables the painting to be viewed from different angles. As they work on, some of those tourists who admire it may speculate what more an art might have achieved had not the plague, which returned to Florence in 1457, killed him in his middle 30s. Pandemics and cultures has gone hand in hand for millennia. The earliest interact of the disease dated for Andrew de Catonico was the Black Death, which arrived in Europe in 1347, killed between a third and half of the population, with a help clear a path to Renaissance by bringing about great changes in the economic and the social order. The Black Death did not directly lead to the Renaissance, said John Henderson, the author of this book on plague. Florence under siege, but it did lead a great concentration of wealth among a smaller number of people. Wages doubled, the richest become even richer, he said, then in turn give them the means to finance great art. The pandemic may even have left its mark on styles of painting. In the first decade of the 14th century, Giotti has produced a cycle of unprecedentedly lifelike frescoes in the Arena Chamber in Prague, depicting the expression of human emotions which a realism that became a hallmark of Renaissance art. But as Leonardo da Vinci wrote, after art fell back, for a while at least, painters largely abandoned spiritual rendering and lively expression for artistic stylist forms of representation. Professor Henderson suggests the trauma of the plague may have been rekindled an activism for the familiar, just as many under lockdown today has turned to confronting well-done novels and undemanding old movies. Pandemics shaped creativity in other ways too. Galvini Basicus, the Decomerling, in which 10 young people swam tales which sheltered from the Black Death, is the best-known example. One of the Basicini stories was borrowed by William Shakespeare for All Well That Ended Well. They also inspired operas and works of poetry and prose, including at least one novel in Arabic, Sadi Aslan's The Plague, in which the fear-inducing disease is Gamal Abbon's Nasser's dictatorship. The virus that ranged Florence as psychotic characters sparked the Yard's return again and again. The last outbreak in Europe was in 1743 in Messina, the very port through which the disease has entered the continent almost 4 centuries earlier, living with the ever-present threat produced a gene of Postularian art, often sponsored, lavishly so by penitential society or confraternity. The aim was usually to invoke the protection of Virgin Mary or two saints regarded as particularly effective against disease, Saint Satoni and Saint Rick. Meanwhile, doctors and clerics agree from an early stage on the therapeutic value of music, though they sometimes differed on whether the music that lifted spirits was appropriate for protecting soul. Much devotional music was intended to be so in procession that would their way through the cities of Europe in times of peak. This has temporarily resonates. Early stages of lockdown in March, Italians went on their balconies and terraces to sing and play music. In doing so, they are unwittingly imitating their 16th century precedents, considering their potential processions encourage contagion. The Archbishop of Milan, Carlo Barone, encouraged citizens to sing from their doors and windows in order to collectively promote the public rules while controlling inside their own home, according to Rune Chun, a mythologist in plague and music in the research. Other forms of art has flourished during or just after outbreaks of disease. The first of the three great cholera pandemics of the 19th century, which began in India in 1817, was followed by a first post-apocalyptic novel. Mary Shelley's The Last Man offers an even grimmer version of humanity future than Cormac Matthews wrote. The Australian art Echo Sigil during his battle, Gaster Killen, as he lay lying from the influenza pandemic in 1918, screening himself scrambled after finishing the drawing. Virginia Woolf suffered heart damage from her encounter with flu and for his resulting deliberation of the title character of his novel, Mrs. Dalloway. A. Ibn Akra, a professor at the University of Richmond in Virginia, argued the chances of psychological effects of the 1918-20 flu pandemic can also be detected in works of the interwar period written by other survivors. She sees the shadow of virus in T.S. Eliot, The Wasteland, in which death can seem even present. Under the broad fog of a winter dawn, a crowd flowed over London Bridge. So many. I have thought death has done so many. What do that form's art, both modern and older, has in common? Several themes recur. One is the notion of the pandemic as a great lever. The diverse position in the light of current studies showing the poor hit the most. But before statistical analysis, it was a common motive in the 15th century artist Journal of the Dance of Death. It features an Anglo Allan Poe Cottrell-inspired short story, The Magic of the Red Death, in which a prince and court shut themselves away to escape an pandemic, but find that lesser disease has slipped in an uninvited guest at their mask ball. In some of the early commentary around COVID-19, the theme crept back. So what of COVID-19? Some American evangelical preachers are keen to portray it as a hoax rather than a reprisal. The Roman Dodgen, the leader of the White House Bible Study Group, has ascribed it to God disgust with gays, lesbians, and environmentalists. By contrast, Jane Goodall, a leading environmental campaign, has argued that it's our messaging with nature, cutting down forests, burning people and animals close together, hurting animals and eating them, that led these barriers spread from animals to people. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 inspired novel and work and music have yet to materialize what they do. They will join a long, rich tradition.